The idea of soul contracts has been gaining ground in spiritual and New Age communities for decades. The basic claim is simple. Before you were born, your soul made agreements with other souls about the kind of life you would live, including the pain and the sufferings you would experience. Suffering on this view is not random. It is planned and purposeful. And in some versions of this belief, it is something you essentially signed up for. This is a comforting idea when life gets hard. But it also raises a serious question. If suffering was prearranged for your spiritual growth, does that make it acceptable? And what happens when we apply this belief to the most extreme forms of human pain? Abuse, genocide, the death of a child? The soul contract belief is built on the idea of reincarnation and souls progressively evolving. It teaches that personal misfortunes are fated by pre-birth plans or contracts that the souls supposedly create to accelerate growth in an upcoming incarnation. This is what scholars call a theodicy, an attempt to explain why suffering exists in a universe meant to be good and ordered. The idea that suffering is preordained and purposeful is not entirely new. It is seen across Buddhism, Hinduism, and Christianity in various forms. Soul contract thinking packages this ancient belief into a modern spiritual one. And for many people, it genuinely helps. It gives meaning to pain that would otherwise feel pointless. But meaning is not the same as justification. And this is where the dark truth begins to surface. The philosopher John Hick, who developed a related concept known as soul-making theodicy, suggested that suffering is permitted so that human souls can grow towards spiritual maturity, that we cannot fully develop without grappling with evil. His work has been widely studied, but also widely challenged. Like the philosopher Michael Tooley argued that the magnitude of suffering experienced by some people is excessive, and that in many cases it cannot lead to moral development at all. Children who die young, victims of violent atrocity, people crushed by illness they cannot survive. Their suffering does not fit neatly into a framework of growth and learning. This is exactly the problem with soul contracts as a framework for understanding suffering. When taken too far, it risks suggesting that victims of horrific injustice agreed to their own pain, that an abused child, somewhere before birth, consented to be harmed for spiritual advancement. As philosopher Stanley Kane, who taught at Miami University in Ohio, observed, it is not obvious that many of the virtues said to come from suffering, courage, compassion, wisdom, actually require evil to develop. Courage can be built through any difficult long-range task. Compassion can grow through ordinary human closeness. Moral and spiritual growth do not necessarily require suffering. There is also another concern. When people believe their suffering is contracted and therefore meant to be, they may resist seeking help. They may excuse harmful relationships, stay in dangerous situations, or blame themselves for pain caused by others. Mo Abdelbaki, a metaphysical consultant with over 50 years of experience, cautions that it is only when people believe they fully understand their contract that real problems arise, because that certainty can lead to inaction in situations that call for a clear, decisive response. None of this means the soul contract idea has no value. For people searching for meaning in loss, it can bring genuine comfort. But comfort is not the same as truth, and it is not the same as justice. Suffering deserves to be taken seriously on its own terms, addressed, challenged, and where possible ended, not simply reframed as something the soul requested. A balanced view of this, which may be more helpful, is this. Instead of saying suffering is chosen, it may be better to say that people can learn from difficult experiences. Growth can come after pain, but that does not mean the pain was necessary or planned. This difference is important. Saying, "This happened for a reason," can feel very different from saying, "You chose this before you were born." The first allows room for healing and reflection. The second can create guilt, confusion, or even silence. I will say that the idea of soul contracts is a belief, not a proven fact. It can offer comfort, but it can also create problems if taken too far. Suffering should never be ignored, justified, or explained away too quickly. The dark truth is simple. Not all suffering needs a spiritual explanation. Some pain is simply pain, and what matters most is not whether it was planned, but how we respond to it now, with awareness, responsibility, and care. But no spiritual framework should ever be used to explain away the suffering of the innocent, or to suggest that those in pain somehow chose it before they arrived.